During his tenure as Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Eric Benken focused heavily on fundamental discipline, getting back to basics, and changing the culture to meet new expeditionary requirements. The 12th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force championed BMT's Warrior Week, which garnered funding for a simulated deployment location at Lackland. He instituted changes in the First Sergeant Academy curriculum, focusing on the deployment responsibilities. He believed changing the title of Senior Enlisted Advisor to Command Chief Master Sergeant and adding the star to the chevron were critical to the success of these positions in garrison and on the battlefield. Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force Benken engaged Congress, ultimately defeating attempts to alter BMT gender-integrated training and reversing the diminished retirement system of 1986.
And so there was no doubt in my mind before I ever got into service that women could do anything that men could do. You know, that was kind of a given. You know, later on when I became the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, we had an issue with gender-integrated training. So myself and my other enlisted counterparts in the other services were kind of tasked by the Joint Chiefs to fight this battle. And so we would do op-ed pieces, we would write, you know, very terse letters to congressmen. We got into a lot of verbal altercations, quite honestly, that went very strong verbal altercations with members of Congress over this issue. But it was absolutely the wrong thing to do. They were going to set women back in our military, and that was absolutely wrong. And so we fought that very hard. I'm very proud to say that, you know, when you look at the evolution of women in the military, you know, today we had 2 women who just completed Ranger training in the Army. The Air Force is going to look to see if they can accommodate them in special operations and lift all of the restrictions. I give the Air Force great credit for giving women the opportunity to, you know, hold the highest positions and things like that. So.
When Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force Jim Finch took the reins, we were moving from a Cold War to an expeditionary mindset. He implemented Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force Benken's BMT Warrior Week vision to help new recruits understand the Expeditionary Air Force was not a temporary concept. The 13th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force spent 3 years focusing on enlisted members' concerns and implementing programs to improve future readiness. He believed future-focused leaders were paramount to success and made significant contributions to ensure the force developed that kind of leader.
Throughout my career, I had opportunities to think about the Air Force in a much broader sense than perhaps many NCOs do. Not right, wrong, or indifferent, it's just where you are the sum total of the things that you've experienced. And so I lacked experience in some areas and had over-experience in other areas. So you bring to the table who you are. And I think I did my best. Knew nothing about what AMC was going through, the challenges or the space business or the old SAC stuff or the missile wings and the bombers. I just hadn't been exposed to those people, and so I really wasn't sure what the issues were. And frankly, for me, the biggest challenge was to get smart on those so that you didn't walk around stupid on stuff. You try to go out there and get a little bit of background. I always found my experience space was like 5 miles wide and about 2 inches deep. Just don't ask too many questions. But I try to understand people. But mostly I believe it's just about connecting with people and trying to do the right thing.
An evolving expeditionary Air Force and a changed world after the September 11th terrorist attacks were catalysts for change during Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force Gerald Murray's tenure. The 14th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force refocused BMT and PME towards expeditionary combat principles and took a leading role in developing the new physical fitness program to improve Air Force-wide capabilities and readiness. Additionally, he led efforts to balance the enlisted force structure by increasing higher tenure for 4 enlisted grades, bringing back the career job reservation and NCO training programs, and redistributing senior NCO promotions in critical and unbalanced Air Force specialty codes. Understanding the need to maintain strong leadership, he initiated a deliberate approach to NCO professional development, led changes to the management of the Chief Master Sergeants, including alignment under the Air Force Senior Leader Management Office, and added a Chief Master Sergeant's leadership course to the enlisted PME continuum.
From the very beginning of that time frame of going in, there was that question about, the readiness of our force and the readiness of our enlisted force. Were they as ready as they needed to be? The uniform. That was again, when I deployed into Kuwait and Bahrain, we looked like a rainbow outfit. If we went out for physical fitness, is that you got every color, shorts, pants. And then I go over and I look at my Army and my Marine, brethren, and they're out there in their fitness uniforms, in formation, team effort together, and all the visual part of it and everything. And so I went into the boss and says, "Boss, we need a fitness uniform to go with this as well." And he agreed, and he funded that right out of his pocket. We didn't even palm it. We just did it. And that was the other thing there, is that we were about changing the mindset, changing the culture of our airmen. And I would tell you today, we're much better for it.
During his tenure, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force Rodney McKinley was an advocate for developing and taking care of airmen and modernizing aging air, space, and cyberspace assets. The 15th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force's efforts to improve the enlisted evaluation system resulted in the first major changes to feedback and performance report forms since 1990. He also advocated for an educated enlisted corps and strongly encouraged airmen to pursue their Community College of the Air Force degree earlier in their careers. A strong advocate for the American airman spirit, he opened the door for creation of the Airman's Creed, which codified Air Force beliefs and articulated the warrior ethos. Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force McKinley also pursued improvements in airman health and fitness, wounded warrior care, child care, spousal employment opportunities, and accompanied and unaccompanied housing.
We're in 2 wars right now. We have airmen that are in the fight every second of every day. We have airmen being wounded, we have airmen being killed, and I'm gonna be their chief. And so from that moment on, my focus was, you've got to do the right things. You've got to make sure your airmen are properly equipped and trained to go over there and they come home safely. So I took it very serious, and so there's some things that maybe I would have thought about doing while I was the chief, but the focus was on all those airmen deploying and those airmen in harm's way, to do everything we can to provide them the safety they need and the equipment they need and the training they need to, and the leadership they need to come back. So that was my focus the whole time I was there, was trying to take care of airmen and their families and testify before Congress to make sure the conditions were right for us to be successful and to keep us going forward as an Air Force to do the right things.
Chief James Roy's key focus areas included ensuring airmen were ready for joint and coalition operations, deliberately developing airmen through education, training, and experience, and building a culture of resiliency within airmen and their families. The 16th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force worked to expand joint and coalition training and engagements, which enhanced the employability of airmen in an increasingly joint and coalition environment. He stressed the importance of updating and expanding distance learning opportunities, developing the enlisted PME Next construct, designed to close the gap in PME following Airman Leadership School.
There were a couple of us from the joint community that the Chief of Staff saw value in and was able to bring that talent back to the Pentagon, and then to be selected, coming from a joint position. In fact, I remember the day that we were appointed. And that, to me, says an awful lot about where we're at as joint. That we can have an airman, a very senior airman in our United States Air Force working in a joint community and bring them back and be the 16th Chief Master in the Air Force, I think says an awful lot about us as a profession and us as an institution called the United States Air Force.
Chief James Cody focused on the deliberate development of airmen, changing enlisted PME to a blended learning model and establishing developmental special duties, which ensured top airmen were in leadership positions that best leveraged their proven performance across the force. The 17th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force heightened the conversation surrounding work-life balance and the importance of finding a reasonable and sustainable demand signal for airmen. He strengthened care and support programs for wounded warriors. Chief Cody moved the enlisted evaluation system and weighted airman promotion system forward to ensure they served today's Air Force and airmen. He led the biggest change to both systems since their inception in 1970.
So, you talk about a lot of things, as you can appreciate, just like Chief Roy talked with me and the successes to him, the former Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, and we were always a resource to the sitting Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. They always have been for me. It is about building new relationships up here, not just around the Air Force at large, and you realize just how big our Air Force is when you step into a position like this. But it's the staff, it's the joint staff, it's the elected officials that you will represent our Airmen and Air Force to. It's a different connection with the American people. So kind of getting your head wrapped around that in a fast and furious pace is challenging. The best advice is to kind of work at it methodically. And I really give anything that has changed in our Air Force that has been good and been positive, I give all the credit to our airmen that have done it. And anything that hasn't worked out too well, then we got to own that, and I'll take my part of that ownership because we would have hoped we could have done better.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a final round of applause for the significant impact the Office of the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force has had on our enlisted force.
At this time, we would like to ask Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force Wright to provide closing remarks.
I thought long and hard about, you know, how to end this evening. First, let me just keep it simple and say thank you. And first, let me say thank you to the club staff for the wonderful meal, for not only the committee that ran our SEL Summit this year, but the committee that ran this event. Wonderful, wonderful event, and I'm very proud of you guys for making that happen. Let me say thank you to all of our young, I see a lot of young airmen, staff sergeants, and tech sergeants. You know, what that tells me is that we have some bridge builders here in the room. Because while I believe that there's probably a few of them who decided on their own, hey, I'm going to figure out a way to get to the 50th anniversary celebration of the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. There's probably a few of them who did that and procured their ticket and did Googled or whatever we do these days to figure stuff out. But I bet you a majority of them had a chief, a senior master sergeant, a master sergeant who built a bridge for them to be here tonight, and that means a lot to me. So thank you, not only to those airmen, but to the chiefs who. And then I'd like to say thank you to all of the chiefs who attended and really made this event possible. This is, I thought, again, a great capstone event to a great week. So thank you very much for everything that you did, all the great camaraderie. I was telling somebody earlier what made this week so special for me was not all of the great speakers or any of the great things, the great staff, but it was, I spent this week with friends and family, and that meant so much to me. So thank you, Chiefs. But most importantly, I'd like to thank my predecessors, the giants of our United States Air Force, who have spent the past 50 years paving the way, being role models. You saw it here, you've read it, you'll get an opportunity to read more about it later. All the wonderful things that they've done for our United States Air Force. Not just, and don't be mistaken, not just for our enlisted airmen, but for our United States Air Force. I wouldn't be here today, you wouldn't be here today, if not for these giants and their beautiful spouses who I know keep them in check. And finally, I would ask that each of you, when you go home this evening, man, you better put a little tick or an asterisk or a star or something on your calendar to denote that you were here in this place tonight to help us celebrate 50 years of the position of the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. And again, the bridges that they've built, the paths that they have laid for all of us. And so, Chiefs, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. You all be blessed and have a good night.
Thank you, Chief Wright.
As we prepare to conclude our ceremony, please note that there is a complimentary commemorative book at the exits of the ballroom for each guest. These books, titled The Evolution of Airmen, Conversations with the Chief Master Sergeants of the Air Force, showcase each chief we highlighted tonight and celebrates the first 50 years of the position of the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. Please stand and join us in the singing of the Air Force song and the departure of our official guests.